Joining me today is illusionist Ken Sky. Thank you so much for taking time to join me and kind of sharing a little bit about your journey because I think it's going to be really interesting and we're going to get to see some tricks later on. So that'll be really cool. But if someone's watching or listening to this right now and they hear the word illusionist, like what does that mean?
That's a great question, Angela. And what people associate the word magic with specifically is with witchcraft. And it is not witchcraft. The world knows or refers to magic as somebody who performs sleight of hand, does tricks. And we use that skill to create an illusion of something, to make people laugh, wonder, think something. Because just like music is used to inspire people, to make them think, to celebrate. And the same way, illusions can be used to tell a story, to make people think of something, and to entertain, and to disconnect them from the real world for just a moment. So, a lot of times when you do an event, you can just feel like there's a heaviness on their mind, especially when you go through tough challenges as a community, for example, to be able to uplift with something that takes them out of that world helps for them to be able to exhale for a moment because our brain is on autopilot for most of the time. And when our brain is focused on all the things that we're struggling with, then something like this helps to disconnect from that because our brain goes, wow, I haven't seen that before. And then we can collect ourselves again better.
For sure. And maybe like a lot of Christians, they might hear the word illusionists and they might get a little bit worried or just like, "Hey, what are you talking about?" So, for you personally, like how do you kind of balance that and reconcile that?
So for some long time ago, before I got into this, I was thinking there was actually people who were possessed by demons who created things that I could not explain. And I've since learned that everything can be explained. And I've seen some really crazy things where you think there's no explanation, but because there was a speaker in town that works with these, he said, this is how we did it. And the example I often think about is a guitar. When people play guitar, it can be used to praise God and it can be used to worship other things, other lifestyles. And what you do with it is up to you, how you use that instrument. The same thing with a car. Most people have cars, and you can use the car to drive to church, and you can use the car to drive to a place that keeps you away from God. Now, the unfortunate thing is that a lot of magicians or illusionists will use the skill to make you think that they have a power that you don't have access to, or that something is real, like mind reading, those types of things. And it's all in the presentation where you get, and that's why people also have the bad feeling because they've seen things that didn't make them feel good. And it's usually because of the way it was presented.
And for you personally, like how long have you been doing this and kind of how did you get that start in it?
The way I got into it was I was about 24 and I had just become a dad, and our son was very sick. We spent many years, the first 4 years of his life, in treatments all the time. He got 21 blood transfusions in his first 4 years alone. And so we spent a lot of time at cancer care with either tests or transfusions. And during one of those times where I just felt absolutely helpless as a dad because there's nothing I could do other than trying to comfort him, a clown came by and just performed this small little illusion for my son. And he didn't know that he was changing my life at that moment because I saw something that took me out of my sadness, made me wonder, made me curious. And the feeling of curiosity is way stronger than anger or sadness. And I looked at this thinking, this is not possible. But I'm seeing this with my eyes, and I can trust my eyes because I know what I'm seeing. So I need to learn how to do this so I can share this with other people so that they get a chance to wander, that they get a chance to snap out of their sadness or inspire them or just laugh.
For sure. Has there ever been something where, maybe you saw someone else perform this illusion and you're like, okay, I want to figure out how to do that. I want to learn how to do it. And it's like maybe some are easier than others.
Yeah, there's a lot of different levels of illusions and skills. I mean, everybody's seen the one where you take your thumb and you remove it, and that would be a very basic thing to do. Or if you take something like this and you go, we know what it is. It's not a trick. Like, you can figure it out. But if you talk about really basic things, that creates the illusion that the finger is jumping from one hand to the other. And then there's illusions that take a lot of practice and skill. Anything to do with manipulation, where you make a card appear out of nowhere, those types of things. And you'll see this on YouTube or on talent shows. And then there's the illusion of reading somebody's body language or reading somebody's mind. And again, performers have a different set of tools that they can practice and combine that with intuition, with some tools that they will not share with you. But to create the illusion, what would it be like if you could read somebody's mind? And in fact, there's an example that I can share with you if you like.
For sure.
Of how I was creating the illusion of reading somebody's mind at our Reel to Reel Film Festival.
Okay.
And I had this whole elaborate system that I had prepared. I had 3 envelopes, and I was going to, just as a demonstration, show how could somebody create the illusion of somebody's mind being read or predicted. And God surprised me in a way that I couldn't even have predicted myself, because I have 3 envelopes, and I picked a random person. She picked 1 envelope, and I pulled out a verse that was in that envelope, gave it to her, and after the show, she said, "That's the last Bible verse I committed to memory." And I tried to calculate the odds of this. I was like, the verses in the Bible multiplied by, there were 6 theaters, 6 shows a week, and about 50 to 100 people in the audience. And for all of this to line up, there's no possible way a human could ever accomplish something like that.
For sure.
Yet it created this very meaningful example as to how God can work through us in all types of areas.
Absolutely. And you just mentioned the film festival with Youth for Christ. Maybe you guys got one coming up soon. You want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So May 27th, it's the last Tuesday in May at 6:30, we are having a mini film festival for our crew at YFC. And we are going to be showcasing the short films that we've been creating with the youth at YFC. And we have a whole collection of short films that have just been absolutely moving and inspirational and fun to do with the youth, and to see them being engaged and act and then run the cameras and audio and everything. It's been so wonderful to see. And so we're going to do that in combination with a mini tour at YFC. So if anybody wants to come see what we do in film and media at YFC, that's a great opportunity to do that.
Absolutely. And I'm kind of turning back to you with your illusion stuff, like when you're like looking back at, maybe just different shows you've done or different performances, like, is there one highlight that really stands out for you?
There's so many, but 2 in particular come to mind right away. One was, we talked before about there's different levels of illusions, and there's also different levels of performers. There's performers who will do the show for the sake of showing what they can do that you don't know how to do. And initially when I started, that came into my act every now and then too, because I felt good to be able to do something that people couldn't do. But it didn't satisfy me. And so I took some specific training, specifically, how can I bring this show to a corporate world that is wholesome, clean, and very entertaining, but has a deeper message to it. And so I was challenged to revisit the story with my son. And it's a longer story, and it involves my sister, which we don't have to get into now. But when I learned that there's more things that go into this to connect companies with their people, or people with their people, in a fun, positive, memorable, but more than that, meaningful way, that meaningful part was always missing from it. It was a bunch of laughs and wonder, and then what? And so when I brought this meaningful component to it, it changed everything immediately. And it was, when I saw it, it was so obvious what had been missing. But when you don't know what's missing, then you can't get there. So I had done the show for a company, and got to the end, and I shared my story. And after the show, a lady came up to me and said, "Your performance, your story was healing for me, because I lost my kid to leukemia. And by you sharing what you shared tonight, it just was healing for me." And that kind of stuck with me so much that I'm like, okay, why would I want to do anything else than to make it about the audience and give them a chance to wander and laugh and be inspired. And the second story that came to mind is I did a performance about 5 or 6 years ago now, and somebody came up to me and said, "You don't know who I am, but do you remember that you did a show for such and such organization about 3 years ago?" And I remember the organization because it was a very unique name, and he said, "I just wanted you to know that there was a family at that show where the dad was really sick, and he passed away that night. But what you gave them was one last time to spend time as a family together, laughing and wonder, and have this beautiful last memory with their dad."
Wow. It's like,
And
how do you even put that into words? You're just getting up on stage, like you said, trying to bring joy to people. And then you hear these stories of just like people's real life. And then just, wow, that's incredible. Thank you
just say
for
thank you, God, for using me in this way.
For sure.
Because if I would have done, if my show had inappropriate acts in it, that would have been the complete opposite. And could you imagine how bad that would be?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times people push the envelope by saying things that are edgy or inappropriate for the sake of laughs. And that's not what it's all about.
For sure. Well, Ken, thank you so much for joining us and sharing that. We're going to get to see a couple of your tricks and your illusions that you're going to be doing. So yeah, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.